Versatile Mage. Chapter 309. The Nests of the Giant Lizards. Moving forward, the swampy areas here were even broader. Even the places where the roads used to be had completely caved in. The swift star wolf was considered a nimble beast, but was forced to be extremely cautious with each step he took. The swift star wolf was running along, currently on top of a collapsed building. The roof was around 100 meters long. The area below the building had reverted to a swamp, and in order to continue forward, he had to jump from this building to the balcony of a residential building ahead. The two buildings were a certain distance apart, hence the swift star wolf needed to sprint to build up momentum. With a burst of speed, the swift star wolf sprang forward like a dark blue arrow being fired. It took less than a few seconds to cover the distance of 100 meters before reaching the edge of the roof. He jumped into the air and swept across the gap between the two buildings, drawing a blue arc in the air. There, somewhere nearby, a soldier shouted while pointing at the two buildings. A few soldiers who had the wind element rushed towards the building from the ground. They were trying to chase after Mo Fan when they realized the place ahead was covered in a huge swamp with black bubbles rising to the surface. No entry. They would sink incredibly fast in the swamp. Even using wind track was not enough to guarantee they would reach the other side safely. Most importantly, there were definitely a lot of giant lizards living in this area. Their strength was a lot higher when fighting in their territory than on the surface. Don't let him escape. The female advisor Jiang Yi in the gray-white uniform shouted. Two soldiers with earth element came up to them and tried to clear the path with their magic. The earth wave was indeed efficient against the swamp. It gradually split the mud aside in the middle, revealing a walkable path. The problem was, the mud was extraordinarily heavy, and it covered a huge area too. It would take them some time just to clear a path to the other side. Even though it was only the distance between two buildings, they had no choice but to chase after their prey slowly. Meanwhile, Mo Fan rode the swift star wolf, which continued to leap between the roofs. The buildings in this area had yet to collapse, but the entire place seemed to have sunk down into the swamp. Luckily, the swift star wolf was quite an athlete, able to jump nimbly between the buildings as they ventured deeper into the swamp. The swift star wolf let out a soft groan as he landed on top of a balcony. 15 years ago, Jinlan City's development had just started booming. There were not many high-rises with elevators, so most of the residential buildings were not too tall. Most of them were around the same height, making them the perfect springboards for the swift star wolf. "Why are you crouching?" Mo Fan asked in a confused tone when he felt his body dropping down. "Humph," the swift star wolf cried out in a low tone, as if it were telling Mo Fan that it was not him crouching, but rather that the whole building was sinking rapidly. Mo Fan looked sideways and realized that the building they were on was indeed a floor lower than the next building. "Jump quick, otherwise, we will be buried together with the building," Mo Fan told the swift star wolf urgently. The swift star wolf did not dare to hesitate further. He immediately took off after seeing that the building was sinking rapidly. As the swift star wolf leapt into the air, Mo Fan was able to tell from his outstanding physics calculation that the swift star wolf was most likely going to slam into the side of the building ahead. The sun was shining brightly above them. He could not even see a single shadow around him, thus the fleeing shadow was out of the question. Luckily, the swift star wolf's claws had a strong grip, and managed to hold onto the edge of the building. The swift star wolf was holding onto the edge, while Mo Fan was holding onto the swift star wolf's hair. The wolf and the man were casually hanging in the air. Under them was a vast swamp like an ocean. Most importantly, a swirl had just appeared right below them, and from it a tyrant giant lizard with a body around 20 meters long opened its mouth wide. Its deep throat was like a tunnel. It was waiting for Mo Fan and the swift star wolf to fall, to drop right into its esophagus. The swift star wolf strenuously pulled himself up and managed to gather a foothold on the roof. Mo Fan quickly took a glance at the soldiers chasing behind him. He realized that they were advancing at a rather quick pace too, as they had earth element magicians clearing the path for them instead of using the roofs. Heading forward, more giant lizards began to appear. No matter which direction he was looking, he could see packs of them swimming in the mud. The battle mages were quite close to catching up to Mo Fan. However, they went from moving in a straight path to being blocked by endless giant lizards rising up from the mud. From afar, they looked like a bunch of crocodiles making their way toward the prey that had trespassed into their territory. Echoes of magic blasts rang out. The group of battle mages was way stronger than the students. The servant-class giant lizards had no chance of getting close to them due to the attacks of continuous basic-level spells, with occasional intermediate spells. Mo Fan had only traveled slightly further when the whole pack of giant lizards was completely massacred. The battle mages were well trained and greatly experienced with battles. It would take more than a few hundred servant-class beasts to pose any threat to them. Strange, what's the devil up to? Mo Fan was curious, staring at the battle mages from afar. The advanced magician Lu Nian was also on the pursuit at the start, but he had somehow disappeared from the group. After spending a brief moment observing his surroundings, Mo Fan realized that Lu Nian was nowhere to be seen. The female advisor was in charge of the group of battle mages chasing after him. The advisor's strength had reached the peak of the intermediate level, having perfectly mastered the third-tier intermediate magic. Her strength would be comparable to Tang Yu in the past. The rest of the soldiers possessed a similar strength to himself. They could cast the second-tier intermediate spells with ease. Mo Fan could barely handle one or two of them on his own. He had zero chance of going against 13 battle mages at the same time. The swift star wolf's gaze suddenly sharpened as it stared at the area ahead alertly. The place ahead was supposed to be a rather busy zone of Jinlan City in the past. The buildings were half standing in the swamp. Parts of the roads and pedestrian paths were still walkable. However, there was something strange from the clear gap between the buildings, as if there were countless eyes watching them. Are you saying that there are more than 10 nests ahead? Mo Fan asked. The swift star wolf nodded. His instincts were telling him about the danger lying ahead. Once they proceeded ahead, they would have a very small chance to survive. Consider it a bet, at least we can still drag those bastards to death with us. Mo Fan clenched his teeth and decisively stepped forward into the dangerous area. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.